Portfolio Composer, episode 164.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of the Portfolio Composer.
We're really solitary beings, just by nature, and I think that this whole social media thing, even as you said, is really, it can be a little scary and a little daunting and, time-consuming, and it's time away from our art, and it's considered, frivolous to be on social media. But actually, it's really necessary. It's really, really necessary, because I don't know about you, but some of the most disheartening moments I've had in my career have been concerts where nobody came. Some people are okay with that, but I'm not. I want my band and myself to have a really good experience when I put on a concert. So I think that, if everybody as composers could kind of get past the stigma of social, I think that we could all learn a new skill and really just learn how to market ourselves. And I think that's as important as creating the music itself.
Hello and welcome to the Portfolio Composer. I'm so thankful for you spending the time listening to this episode. I am your host, Garrett Hope, and I wanted to express my gratitude for your love and support. Thank you for those of you who have joined me on the Portfolio Composer Patreon page by supporting the show. And thank you to all of those who have left an iTunes review. It means a lot to me, and it also is the best way you can support the show because it helps others find the show and learn about it. And I am interested in helping the entire composition community. So if you haven't done that, you can actually click the link in the show notes page. It'll take you to where you can leave a review on iTunes. It just takes a few minutes. I really appreciate it. I am excited about today's conversation because we are going to reach way back and speak with an old friend, someone who's been on the podcast before, Marie Incontrera. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. So Marie was first featured on the podcast back when it was Composer on Fire, actually, in episode 76. Marie is a band leader. She is an entrepreneur. She is a pianist and composer and a social media consultant living in Brooklyn, New York. And currently, Marie is doing a lot of very interesting things as a creative individual, but also building a portfolio-style income for herself, helping other creative individuals. And I was interested in sharing this work with you, both as an inspiration on how you can build your business as a composer and ways that we can do what Marie is an expert at even better. So, you ready to go, Marie?
I'm ready.
Okay, so to remind everyone, and we spent a good deal of episode 76 talking about this, Marie leads this band called the Eco Music Big Band, which she basically inherited from one of her musical mentors, Fred Ho. So without rehashing that entire conversation, Marie, can you just give us a quick snapshot about the Eco Music Big Band and what you guys have been up to?
Sure. Well, we're just about to embark on our 5th season, which I can't believe we're still alive, in our fifth year. We are an avant-garde big band. We focus the majority of our programming on living composers at this point, and also championing the work of Fred Ho, Cal Massey, and Sun Ra, the 3 names who were sort of underrepresented and were major cornerstones of the avant-garde jazz and classical traditions in the 20th century.
That's wonderful. And earlier in the year, you had a major performance, right?
Yes, we did. We performed Carnegie Hall. I did something really brave and really crazy, and I rented Zenkel Hall and Carnegie Hall, and we had a performance there. We did a jazz version of Stravinsky's Soldier's Tale with the actor John Palladino, and he was all over season 5 of Orange is the New Black. We did a Fred Ho concerto. We did some jazz opera. We performed a piece by David Taylor. It was kind of just a catch-all of what we do best.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to follow up on something you just said, Marie. You said you did something brave. Tell me more about that. What was the brave gesture here? Because so often we get stopped by these fears and insecurities as creative individuals. And we have to be brave because we're the people who walk into dark rooms, right? We don't know what's going to be around the corner. So how was this a brave act for you?
Well, renting, for those of you who don't know, renting Carnegie Hall is an expensive endeavor. It's also incredibly complicated. And when I signed the contract in November of 2016, I sort of had no idea what I was getting myself into. And we had the performance in June. So I signed the contract, I paid a rental fee, and then we sort of had to raise all the money and figure out the program from there. So I basically had to walk into a dark room, and we somehow pulled it off. So
Can we get a ballpark for what the cost was to rent the hall?
Sure. So this is Ankle Hall. This is the 600-seat place. The rental was between $5,000 and $6,000, and then labor costs were 5 figures. So,
and that's for the union people, like the sound guys, stage hands, and all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't count, paying the musicians and paying for rehearsal space and paying for the paper to print music on. So your out-of-pocket expenses just to get the gigs on the calendar was almost $10,000. Yeah. Well, it was more than that. So
really,
it was about $20,000 between labor and rental. Yeah.
And so
in case any composers ever want to do that, you can come talk to me.
So that's a pretty brave thing. Yeah. You put a lot of money on the line.
I did. I put a lot of things on the line, including the future of my ensemble and, my credibility as a producer. So that was a very brave thing. That was my big brave moment of my life. But it turned out to be worth it, thankfully.
I know for a fact it's not the first, Marie, and it's going to be one of many that are going to come.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so you put this big risk out, and what I want to learn here is, because I think a big part of being a composer is being willing to do this. And I know other people that I've helped through coaching and everything who are taking these risks, but did it pay off for you first? Were you able to recoup these costs through ticket sales and everything?
Yeah, we just about broke even. I think we were within like maybe a couple $100. And so it did pay off. In terms of my professional life, it absolutely paid off. It was totally worth it. We got incredible times mentioned that's going to follow me around the rest of my career, and got some really good stuff for the members of the band that wrote pieces and members of the band that were featured in Incontrera and things like that. So yeah, it definitely paid off.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. What do you, what do you expect to be the big professional kind of boost that this is going to give your career?
Well, it sort of put both me as a musician and my band as an ensemble on the map in terms of, the ensembles that can do this sort of thing and that can handle this sort of thing. It was almost entirely commissioned music that was, written for the ensemble. I arranged Stravinsky's Soldier's Tale for a portion of the band, so that was a huge thing for me to do. We had some really, really meaningful collaborators, and it was just kind of like a win for everybody, I think. Now that we're 3 months, this concert happened almost 3 months ago, and I've had some time to reevaluate and relax and sort of, catch my breath. And I do think that it was a win.
Seems like it to me. Now you know what the process is, and you can do this again with less fear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The first time you do something, it's like anything. The first time you try something, it's scary because you're sort of fighting your way through the dark. Things happened that I didn't expect, and, costs came up, and, things were needed suddenly. But now that I know the process, if and when the next time that we decide to rent Carnegie Hall, I sort of have the game plan, and I can go through it with less anxiety and sort of less, hashing into the dark.
Right. I remember, because we've been friends on Facebook for a while, and the process of you booking this and your stress posts, and then the 4 weeks leading up to the concert, the I'm not sleeping, I can't believe we're doing this, I'm so afraid. They got closer and closer together, and then it happened, and it was kind of fun to watch.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I had the stress nightmares, the nightmares that I showed up without my concert dress and my music and, all of that. And Murphy's Law happened a few times where I was like, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And then all of a sudden, the magic happened. And so, yeah.
Right.
That's funny. I remember posting those.
Oh yeah, you should go back and look at your feed. It's pretty fun. But you're amazing, so I applaud you.
Thank you.
So
thank you so much.
There are some people who are listening to this, and they have the dreams of doing this. But did you ever imagine yourself booking Carnegie Hall, signing that contract, and writing the check over? Like, could you ever see this happening in your future when you were, even a year ago?
No, I couldn't, and. I have to say, nobody's an island here. I did it with the help and the ideas of my incredible colleagues. My trombone player and creative director, David Whitwell, he came up with the idea that sort of, we looked at it and we said, wow, this could go up in Carnegie Hall, and a year ago, I didn't think, I've been on other programs at Carnegie Hall as a composer. So I've done that, and sort of it's always a dream to be there, but I never in my wildest imagination could imagine myself raising 5 figures of capital to bring my band there. Mm-hmm. It sort of happened out of the blue, and within just a few months of dreaming up the idea of jazz Stravinsky, as it were, it became this thing that I just had to leap into it. And so it was a really big surprise even in my life.
So there's a couple things you said there. Let's talk about the money. How did you raise the capital? Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you used that term capital because, we can dig into that later, but how did you do that?
Well, we have some donors. We have some private donors. We also have some foundational sponsors. We were very lucky. Our main sponsor was the Evelyn Sharp Foundation, and the way that we were able to associate with them was because they funded Fred's projects throughout his life, and they're associated with the Guggenheim Foundation. So that was the first really big win for us. We had an Italian agency come in, our artist agency come in with us, World Entertainment Company, and then the rest was just individual donations. There was a little bit of me just like squirreling money away for a little bit because, expenses became sort of unforeseen. One thing I learned is to build a discretionary fund when you do these things. Like if you think you're going to need 20,000, should probably raise 30, so, right. And that's just the reality of any project.
Yeah. Because of the unexpected and Murphy's Law. Right. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So why did you choose to refer to this lump sum of money as capital?
Well, I've always looked at my band as a business. And to me, and I know that a lot of musicians and ensembles, especially jazz ensembles, don't really operate this way, but I see paying my people as a non-negotiable. So to me, this is part of the startup process. This is part of the process to make sure that my project happens, is we raised the capital. And of course, this is probably a good time to mention that one of my really close friends is Dory Clark, who's an incredible business person, and she's going to be on your show soon.
Yes, she is.
So I've been really lucky to kind of be in the room with a lot of really, really creative business people and understand what raising money is really like, and they've sort of helped me through this process over the past couple of years.
There is a pushback, especially in the new music community, about thinking businessly, especially about what we do, because we make art. And capital, I mean, that's the root of the word capitalism, because it's the idea of taking money and investing it and making it work for you. And in this case, you were investing it in a venue and in people for an opportunity.
Right, exactly.
And there's not really a moral judgment associated with that. It's how it's literally the use of the money, what was going on with it.
Sure, yeah. And, you know, as a political composer, I've always considered myself quote unquote anti-capitalist, because I believe, but I believe that what I'm doing with the money is, you know, inherently anti-capitalist because I'm putting it into the pockets of musicians. And, you know, and that's something that not a lot of people can say they do. So it really means a lot to me to be able to pay my musicians well and to be able to get them a gig where, you know, they get to play on the stage at Carnegie Hall and it's paid.
Yeah.
And that really changes the dynamic, and it I think it makes what I'm doing become that much more serious just because there's capital involved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're on the hook too.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you do this great big event, you're able to pull it off, and then what, Marie? Do you immediately start planning the second one, or what did you do?
Well, I didn't get out of bed for about a week because I was tired. Well, I took some time off. You know, I decided to take the summer and just not think about music. I'm very lucky because, you know, as you mentioned, I do have this online business that is able to sustain me no matter what I'm doing. And I do work from home. I got more seriously into stand-up comedy, so I've been doing that, and it's been really fun.
Okay, we got to dig into that. Stand-up comedy?
Yeah. Yeah, so I took a class. Actually, Dory took the class, and she told me I needed to take the class, and so I did. And it was a 6-week class, and then the graduation show was at Gotham Comedy Club in early August, and Jim Gaffigan opened for us. So,
oh, really?
So yeah, it was awesome. It was so cool. So I got to tell jokes the same night that Jim Gaffigan did and got to share the stage with him, which was fun because like I still got to be creative and I got to take some time off music, you know?
Yeah.
But now I'm just getting into planning this coming season, which is, I thought it would be small, but it turns out it's not going to be. It's going to be a pretty big one also. So I'm very happy with that.
Awesome. And you also said that you have this online business that sustains you. So, and this is really, I think, the meat of what I wanted to get at today.
Sure.
Tell us about your business.
Well, I've been running my own business now for about a year and a half. My business has changed over the course of the year and a half because I've started to specialize a little bit more. But I started out as a virtual assistant, meaning that I was working from home, assisting clients. I started out, I worked for a composer, and I've also worked for several business people, thought leaders and marketing experts and things like that. And then I started doing social media consulting. And what that means is that I run the social media accounts of authors, thought leaders, small businesses. I have a gaming app that's really, really fun to work on. So that's one thrust of my business. I've also specialized in publicity outreach for thought leaders on podcasts and radio, and developing and pitching TEDx's.
So you're helping get people booked to speak at TEDx events.
Right.
Wow. Awesome. So I'm particularly interested in digging into social media because this seems to be one of the primary methods composers can get the word out about what they're doing and their music.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll just go right to the heart of it here, but what are the 3 things that composers can do right now to help them with their social media marketing?
Well, and I'm sure people are going to hear this and say, oh, that's too much, but post every day. That's the first thing. And it doesn't have to be this really self-promotional post, where you say, oh, look at this amazing thing I'm doing. You can take a picture of, a bar of music that you wrote this morning, or something that you see out your window that really inspired you to write a piece, or take a picture of your desk or something like that. And just really think about it as sharing with the world what you do as an artist and what makes you happy and inspires you. And that's the first thing that you can do right now, whether you have an upcoming show or not. Really what you want to do is you want to be able to, you do have to be posting with some frequency because you want to cut through the din. Social media is very noisy. And, you post once. If you post once a week, nobody is going to see your post. That's just how it works, especially on something like Facebook, where the algorithm works in your favor if you post more. Because the more engagement that you get, meaning if people like or comment or click on your post, the more engagement that you get, the more you are seen. And the more you are allowed to show up in the feed. So you do want to be posting with frequency. Vary your posts. Don't be afraid to get a little personal, especially because we're artists. Our process is really important. Our emotions are really important. And reach out. Like some of my best connections have come through social media. Some of the best ideas have come from, just messaging somebody and saying, hey, I really like what you're working on. Can we talk?
Well, that's kind of how you and I connected.
Exactly.
So you say this post every day, and it just fills me with dread because I'm so busy, and I know I should be doing this. And sometimes when I log into social media, especially Facebook, I end up wasting a lot of time. So how can I do this well?
Well, you can plan. A lot of people I know sit down and schedule their posts through something like TweetDeck, which I think TweetDeck is only for Twitter, but I think if you buy Hootsuite, you can do it on Facebook also. Or if not, you can just go into a Word document and plan on a Sunday. Just take an hour or two and plan what you're going to post. You can start taking pictures, that kind of thing. Instagram is a really awesome tool because it allows this visual element to, you can take really nice pictures and they can become really a part of your brand.
Do you think that, depending on your audience, that Instagram really is the place to be? It seems to be popular, but I don't know of a lot of composers who are really active on it. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, I do think Instagram is a really amazing place, especially to build your audience beyond the people that you know. Facebook is generally for your personal connections, right? Like you're not going to post something and reach anybody that you're not already connected with, unless you post something that goes viral, which is, not very likely. But on Instagram and on Twitter, you can use things like hashtags and tagging to sort of reach a new audience. And so I do like Instagram a lot. I use it quite a bit for my band, and I've seen us, get quite a bit. One of my most popular posts, incidentally, was right before Carnegie Hall. We had a makeup sponsor. MAC Makeup did the makeup for me, a few of the other girls, and for David Whitwell, who played a drag queen in one of the pieces. So we had this makeup sponsor come in, and they sent us some supplies. So I took a picture of the supplies, and we got something like 300 likes
Wow.
within an hour on it, so that's a whole bunch of people that we reached that we never would have reached otherwise.
Okay, that makes sense. And so besides posting every day, what else should we be doing?
You should be varying your content. So, not always posting, look at this great thing I'm doing, but, just things throughout your day, highlight your friends, and that's as much a win for your friends as it is for you, because when you do the selfless act on social media and give your friends a shout, it kind of just boosts goodwill, and it boosts the eyes that are on your post as well. So that's something that I recommend. The other thing is there's this really great tool called Canva, like Canvas without the S.
Mm-hmm.
It's a free app, and you can go in and you can create branded content. So you can have posters, digital posters, Instagram posts and things you can edit. And if you look on my band page, I have a whole bunch of these little postcards that I created for Carnegie that, have a little bit of information and, a really branded picture of that's instantly recognizable of the band and what I do. So that's something else that you can be doing.
Yeah, I'm looking at these right now.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Yeah, I've used Canva a little bit too because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I had been told that posts that have an image or a video attached to them do better than just text posts. Is that true?
That's very true. Yeah, especially video. But even photos just really dramatically increase the eyes on your posts. In fact, the social media firm that I work for a little bit, they recommend that every post has a picture, except for on Twitter.
Why not Twitter?
Well, Twitter you should use pictures, but you don't have to use it for every single one. Twitter is a lot more labor intensive. When I work with my clients, I post a lot more on Twitter than I do any other platform because things move so fast on Twitter.
So it seems like we could actually just spend a couple hours of our day just running our social media accounts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we should just hire people like you to do it for us.
Right. And then I'll spend hours doing it. Yeah, I mean that's really the reality nowadays. But the good thing about it is that you don't have to spend as much money on print marketing or radio marketing or
right.
You still need those things, but you have a big audience now for free.
How can we better target what we're doing on social media to our audience or the people we want to communicate with? Because often social media feels like a shotgun blast out into the world with no return.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're working on Twitter, the big thing is follow the people that you want to see your work. So for example, I follow the American Composers Orchestra. I follow Carnegie Hall. I follow WBGO, the jazz station. So that's really the first step. And then you start tweeting at them and you start communicating with them. So conversation is a really important thing on Twitter. On Facebook, it's kind of similar. You can tag the ensembles you want to talk to, or, if you go to, I'm going to use ACO as an example again. If you go to a great ACO concert, you can take a picture and write on Facebook. I loved being at the ACO concert at Symphony Space and tag them. And that's really just how you start the conversation. And if you do it for long enough and you're patient, you will build an audience and you will build that conversation. It may not work the first couple of times, but it will start to really just, you'll see the increase.
And are you promoting posts as well?
I do sometimes. Promoting is not really my specialty. That's sort of more of a science in terms of using keywords and using a target and things like that. But I did, when I advertised the Carnegie Hall show, I don't think I promoted anything. I might have promoted once and it was only $20.
I have found recently, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but it seems to me that most of my posts are not being seen anymore unless I promote it.
Oh, well, that's because, so you have like a business page, right?
Yeah.
So one of the ways that you can get around that, which is what I do, because I have the Eco Music Big Band business page, right? And not many people see that unless I share it out onto my personal page.
So that actually does help.
Up the algorithm.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it does. It drives up the algorithm. And then if you can get somebody else to share it, which I did. I asked the band, can you share certain posts out? If they share it, then the algorithm goes up, and then it's more likely that there will be more organic views from your page.
Okay, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
As you are, you're heavily into social media, you're on there every day, and you're also highly connected with a lot of the new music scene. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you see composers do regularly that actually hinder what they want to do, that are not good practices?
That's a good question. I see quite a bit. I see a lot of calling out and complaining about other musicians or an ensemble that they're not happy with or something like that. And that's kind of a slippery slope, because the truth is people see it, especially if you're active on social media. All it takes is one person to see that. So, one thing I do advise is that, just be careful what you talk about on social media when it comes to professionalism. I've been there. I've been, in a situation where I was upset with somebody I was working with, like that kind of thing. Just like, be careful what you say. Don't mention names, that kind of thing.
What about just the negativity in general? I get so worn down and tired of seeing these negative posts, even by people I respect and whose music I like.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's even harder now because of the political climate that we're in.
It's really hard.
There's a lot. Yeah. It's just become an echo chamber, and everybody's really upset. And, we're talking about the president. We're talking about, our art and funding and lack of opportunities and that kind of thing. And, it's really, it kind of raises your endorphins to complain on social media and get the likes. Mm-hmm. I do it too. I'm not innocent here. I do it too, but I think it's something to definitely do carefully and do it in moderation, if at all.
I think
you're right. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Just today, I probably saw 3 or 4 negative composer posts.
I probably saw the same ones.
Yeah, I bet you did. And I just don't want to be that person. And it's not that I want to be Pollyanna. It's just that I want to instead be more of an inspiration. Like, I don't want to be the person who's dragging other people down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the flip side, I do think it's important to be honest.
Absolutely, 100%.
One of the things that I thought was really important, because there is the intention of or not the intention, but there's the effect of creating kind of like a sanitized version of your life and only posting positive things. And, a lot of people kind of make fun of that. And I do think it's important to be honest. I was very honest about how hard things got before the Carnegie show. And I thought that really, that ended up working in my favor.
Well,
because,
I think that was a little bit different. You were describing your journey through this action you were taking, rather than just sitting there like an armchair quarterback complaining about the plays of a football team.
Well, that's true. That is different. But, I thought it was important to not say everything's great, everything's fine, because it wasn't, and it was this really hard thing. And I thought it would be valuable to the community to say, this is what I'm going through. This is how hard this is, and yet it's worth it. I thought that was a valuable thing to contribute.
Well, I appreciate it, and I enjoyed it. And your regular posts and updates actually heightened my emotional involvement about what you guys were doing, even though I was unable to come to the concert. And I see that as validation of what you're saying about posting regularly, sharing it all.
Yeah.
And it's something I need to do more of.
Yeah, I mean, and I see things like for instance, we just booked Symphony Space for May of 2018, and I posted about it on Facebook, and it's 10 months out at this point, and the band's seeing all that excitement on social media, that makes them excited, and that gives them a reason to feel like, well, there are going to be people in seeing this show, and it's going to be a really great show, and it heightens their emotional involvement, and then people know about it. So for instance, like even someone like you who lives across the country, so you can't maybe come to the show, but you have an idea about it, and who knows, maybe if somebody ever says to you, hey, do you know any avant-garde big bands, that might come across the country and perform, you know what I mean? Like that's the potential of the reach for this thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's really, really great. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today, but I didn't ask you?
Yeah, I mean, I think composers we're really solitary beings, just by nature. And I think that this whole social media thing, even as you said, is really, really, it can be a little scary and a little daunting and, time consuming, and it's time away from our art, and it's considered, frivolous to be on social media. But actually, it's really necessary. It's really, really necessary, because I don't know about you, but some of the most disheartening moments I've had in my career have been concerts where nobody came.
Yeah.
Some people are okay with that, but I'm not. I want my band and myself to have a really good experience when I put on a concert. So I think that if everybody as composers could kind of get past the stigma of social, I think that we could all learn a new skill and really just learn how to market ourselves. And I think that's as important as creating the music itself.
I love that. I actually just wrote that down because I think that's going to be my pull-out quote.
Sweet.
I think you're right. And, not only do I want the musicians who I have brought on the stage with me to have a good time, I actually want my music to impact the people that are going to be there. So I want people in the seats. I'm not just writing music to just play out into the air and die away. I want it to mean something to those who hear it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. A lot of... And I feel like this is a big stigma in jazz too, because jazz musicians generally speaking, I try not to speak in generalities because they get me in trouble, but generally speaking, don't really concentrate on marketing. They don't concentrate on the business end of things. But then what happens is there are 20 people on stage and 10 people in the audience.
Yep.
And like you said, like, if you play a really, really great solo, or you have this masterpiece of a new composition and 10 people hear it, well, does that feel good,
And you look at the greats, like even people, I mean, we can go through any of the swing or bebop artists or even Miles Davis and anyone. They not only were making this incredible art, but they got a way to get the word out about it. They marketed their music so people would show up at the club. Right, exactly.
Exactly. So they were doing it, so why shouldn't we?
Yep. Well, because we think that self-promotion it has bad qualities associated with it.
Right. And it can. I don't know about you. I've been in the room with a composer more than once where I feel like, oh my gosh, can they talk about anything but themselves?
Yes, I've been there. It's awful.
Right. Like, especially once I became an ensemble leader, that seemed to be the general, like, I that happens a lot more often. But I feel like there's a way to do it, and then there's a way to do it well. That doesn't feel like self-promotion, and really is just about having a conversation. And
Yes.
this is a new way for us to have a conversation that didn't exist 25 years ago.
Yeah. Do you follow Joe Polish's work?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, he's a marketing expert, and that's what he always says is marketing is a conversation. And it's not selling people anything, it's just letting them know what's available and finding out really what they're interested in and what they need.
Right.
So true.
Right.
Well, let's take a quick break right here, and then we'll come back for the lightning round. This podcast is entirely made possible by the Patreon sponsors of the Portfolio Composer. So it's with a great big heartfelt thank you and with as much love and gratitude as I can muster when I say thank you to my sponsors for making this possible and allowing me to create these podcasts and to do the group coaching calls that so many of you are getting benefit from. And I need to take a moment to thank some recent Patreon sponsors. So this goes out to Jason, Ann, Patrick, James, Joseph, Craig, Ryan, Jennifer, and Pam. Thank you so very much. And for those of you who are considering being a Patreon sponsor, I'm really just asking for $1 a month, $12 a year to help me continue to grow this podcast and create more resources for you as you build your composition business. If you donate at the $5 a month level, you can participate in my monthly group coaching calls, which I've been able to bring in previous guests where we've gone deeper on specific topics. Jocelyn Hangen spoke to us about self-publishing. We've had talks with branding experts, and Marie Incontrera, this episode's guest, is going to join us next week for our coaching call to help us build a social media strategy as composers. So don't hesitate. Go to patreon.com/portfolio composer and become a sponsor of the show yourself today. Thanks.
Welcome to the lightning round.
If you could turn back the clock, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Speaking as somebody who is now running their own online business and sort of, doing that and being a musician, I would say do it sooner. Do it, don't have so much anxiety about it. And it's really worth it to not work a horrible job that leaves you exhausted at the end of the day.
What is a personal habit of yours that you feel leads to your success?
Every day I exercise, and it really helps me clear my head. It helps me get focused, and it makes me more productive. So that, 45 minutes to an hour that I spend doing Pilates or doing yoga or, skating really, really makes a difference.
You are a pianist, but what instrument have you always wanted to learn to play and why?
Baritone saxophone, because that's what Fred played. And I just want to learn how to play a couple of his pieces because they're like really, really just kind of gritty and groovy and awesome. And bass trombone.
Wow.
And bass trombone is because I have an incredible trombone section, and I've seen what that instrument can do, and I've really fallen in love with it. David Taylor and Felix Delchonati are the bass trombonists in my band, and they're just incredible, and they know how much I love that instrument because of them. So
you just really want to play a low-end instrument, I think. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No flute, no clarinet, just, give me that low end.
Right, that's where the power is. What is one composition that has had a profound impact on you and why?
Okay, well, I feel like this is kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to use a Fred Ho piece. Fred Ho, of course, was my late teacher. And that piece is Free New Africa Boogaloo, which is a blues groove in 6, so 6/4 time. And it's the coolest, grooviest thing I've ever heard. But the reason that it kind of touched my soul is because I heard him play it when he was, in the throes of recovering from lung cancer. And I saw him and his saxophone quartet march around a church playing it. And that sound is probably the most gorgeous sound I've ever heard. So that's the piece.
There it is. That's wonderful. What about a piece by a minority or female composer that you feel we should all listen to and know?
I love Tanya Leon's Scourge of Hyacinth, the opera. I think everybody should listen to that.
What is one book that will benefit the personal, creative, or business lives of the podcast listeners, and why?
I'm going to recommend Dory Clark's trilogy.
Yay!
Reinventing You. Reinventing You, Standout, and Entrepreneurial You. And I'm not just recommending that because she's my friend. But I think it's important for anybody who's, ever going to do any creative or business endeavor. It really has some great advice about how to build your brand and how to market yourself, and also how to be a successful business person.
Well, it changed your life, and it helped you create a business that's now paying the bills.
For sure.
Yeah. Where can people find you on the internet, and how can they get a hold of you?
My band website is ecomusicbigband.com. That's all one word, ECO, like eco, like ecological, musicbigband.com. Or you can email me, marie.incontrera@gmail.com. Or, of course, on social media, I have a Facebook page. The band has a Facebook page. We have a Twitter, which is at ecomusicbigband, and an Instagram at ecomusicbigband.
Do you have any final thoughts, words of advice, or anything you want to share before we sign off?
Yeah, I think so. This is something that I think I alluded to, but I didn't actually say, and I think it's worth saying that as artists, we find what makes us different and what makes us unique, and I think that's also important when you're marketing yourself. The thing that makes you different is the thing that's going to interest people, and so don't shy away from it. Make it part of your brand. Really, just like market the hell out of it. Why not, Yeah,
it's what sets you apart.
Exactly.
Marie, I'm so glad to be your friend. Thank you for joining me for this discussion again, and really teaching me and all of the listeners how we can do social media marketing better, even if it feels like a slog. It feels like this is the way marketing is done now.
Absolutely. Thank you. Italian, and I am Middle Eastern. I'm 25% Middle Eastern from the countries Armenia and Lebanon. So I'm like a little bit Kardashian. I'm the family member that's a little weird, so they don't bother with them. So you guys, I'm Rob Kardashian. Okay, that's joke number one. So I did have an Italian nonna. I am 75% Italian, and we lived with an Italian nonna. And most people think that Italian nonnas are really nice, but mine wasn't. She, one time, got a little drunk, and she threw my Barbies out the window. And I was 7 years old, and I was really impressionable. And that's the day that I developed a butch lesbian fetish.
I saw you post that one on Facebook today. That's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's my newest one. So.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you so much. That was fun.